Example 3, find the 6 trig function values of angle theta and standard position of the terminal side of theta is defined by this line, x plus 2y equals 0. But we're finding the 6 trig function values, so we're doing the same thing. We're finding sine theta, cosine theta, tangent theta, secant theta, cosecant theta, and cotangent theta. Okay? The thing that makes this harder than the last two is last time they gave you an xy point. Here they don't give you an xy point. They give you like this, this equation. Okay? We really want an xy point. And so, you know, I guess what you could do is just find an xy point. Okay? So, think about this. I could do 0. I don't think zeros are going to be good to use, though, because remember, we don't want 0 on the bottom of our fractions. So let's pick something else. Notice that x has to be greater than or equal 0. So let's pick something else. Let's pick, let's pick 1. Something like that. Okay? If I plug in 1, I think 1 plus 2y equals 0. Or subtract 1, you'll have 2y equals a negative 1, divide by 2, y equals negative 1. Okay? So I've got the point 1 comma negative 1 half. 1 comma negative 1 half. There's nothing wrong with that other than it's a little bit difficult to deal with the fraction. So maybe I'll get a different point. Okay? Let's get let's try 2. Let's see what happens if I plug in 2. If I plug in 2, I got 2 plus 2y equals 0. Subtract the 2 over, you add 2y equals negative 2. Divide by 2, that's y equals negative 1. I've got the point 2 comma negative 1. That might be a little bit easier to use. Okay, I think that point might be a little bit easier to use. So let's just use that point. We could use the other point. It doesn't really matter, but I'd rather not have to deal with fractions. Let's use that point and find r. We don't need both points. I just picked this one. Okay? Let's let this be my x and this be my y. So x squared is going to be 4. I'm going to have 4 plus that y squared number is going to be negative 1 squared root of 1. We're looking at the square root of 5. So r equals the square root of 5, right? R equals the square root of 5. So I've got x is 2, y is negative 1. I've got r is the square root of 5. I ought to be able to get all my 6 trig functions. Sine theta. Sine goes with y. We're talking about y over r. So we've got negative 1 over the square root of 5. Negative 1 over square root of 5. Okay. Now, Math Excel is not going to let you type that in, I don't think, because you're not supposed to leave a square root on the bottom, right? So you're going to remember a little bit of algebra here, and remember how to get rid of that square root on the bottom. Let's multiply by square root of 5 over square root of 5. Okay. That gives me negative square root of 5 over square root of 25, which is 5. There's my first trig function value. Let's look at cosine theta. Cosine theta. Remember, cosine goes with x. So remember, the x coordinate is 2. We've got 2 over the square root of 5. Same way, you can't leave that square root on the bottom. Let's rationalize the denominator. We're going to get 2 square root of 5 over 5. Tangent theta. This is the easy one. Tangent's y over x. Y over x is just negative 1 half. Okay, good. So now let's do our reciprocals. Reciprocal functions. Cosecant theta. Remember the theta, don't leave that out. Is going to be the reciprocal of sine theta. Okay? Now, what people will want to do is they'll look over here and they'll flip this one. And you can do that, but the reason I don't want to is that's gonna put a new square root of 5 on the bottom, and I'm gonna have to re-rationalize the denominator. Why don't we look over here? If we look at that one, if I take that reciprocal, I won't have to re-rationalize. If I just flip that one, I'm gonna have square root of 5 over negative 1. Or how about we just say negative square root of 5? Okay. Negative square root of 5. We want to do secant theta. Secant theta is going to be the reciprocal of cosine. So I'm not looking over here. You could, but it's going to be more work than if you just looked at this blue. I'm going to flip that blue, and that's going to give me square root of 5 over 2. Next we do cotangent theta. Cotangent theta, I need to take the reciprocal of tangent theta. So the reciprocal of -1/2 is going to be -2. And so there we have our six trig function values. Okay.